the good version of Proud Mary?
That's a good question.
How's it going?
Wait for other people to tell you where to go. You're standing at the doorway when it's time for you to go. And as you heed your friend's advice, how you just can't lose. Spend your life walking round someone else's shoes. I'm going round and round in circles. I don't know there's a game, but I'm fighting my life on my own. I'm leaving myself away. People that tell you how to stay out of the storm. When the weatherman for the other days and these guys stay warm. Be your own boy first and foremost. When you start that social line, go with the ball, the subway road. And you get there right on time. I'm going round and round in circles. I don't know there's a game, but I'm fighting my life on my own. I'm leaving myself to blame. I'm going round and round in circles. I don't know there's a game, but I'm fighting my life on my own. I'm leaving myself to blame.
Our sun's coming, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
That was never ever sung in the House of Commons, never. And it was, to us, it just didn't seem right. Jeanette said to me at our very first caucus meeting following the 1993 election, why don't we sing O Canada to start the meeting? Because it used to be with the Reform Party that spouses were actually invited to the caucus meetings. So we did. And so a tradition started. I then said, when we got to Ottawa, why aren't we singing O Canada in the House of Commons? Ladies and gentlemen, friends, it took us 7 months with protracted negotiation to get the singing of O Canada in the House of Commons. So if you ever want to hear some real off-key O Canada, tune in to CPAC on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. That's 12 noon Mountain Time, and you will hear some of the worst singing that sounds just the best, because we're finally singing O Canada in the House of Commons.
Well, greetings everybody, and good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to say it's great to see so many familiar faces and so many old friends today. Many of you who have worked in this constituency tirelessly over the years to keep and ensure that Jim Abbott was in Ottawa. And today we got folks, and I've talked to many of you that have come down from Revelstoke and Golden and the Invermere, and then out in the Elk Valley. I just met some folks from Fernie. They're sitting in the front row from Fernie, Elkford, and Sparwood, and then folks from Creston, and obviously a good turnout from Cranbrook. So this is great to see you all here. But this is really more like a family barbecue because everybody here, I think, shares a common vision, common values, and certainly the similar mission. So you'll agree with me, it's good to be among friends. My name is David Kaiser, and I'll be your master of ceremonies today. And you can understand how difficult my job's going to be when you give a microphone to a whole bunch of politicians and let them have at it, telling stories. You just saw, Dave, I got a story. Let's talk about O Canada. So we're going to have some fun today, though. But it's also a special event for a number of reasons. First of all, we want to honor our Member of Parliament and pay tribute to Jim and Jeanette for 18 years of dedicated service and exceptional work on our behalf. Several guests here who are going to pay tribute to him and help us do that. But today is more than just an opportunity to pay tribute to Jim and Jeanette. It's also an opportunity to celebrate success that we've enjoyed in the Columbia Kootenay constituency under Jim's leadership. As Jim mentioned, 18 years ago, looking forward, I have to tell you the political landscape didn't look near as rosy as it looks today, looking backwards. And if you recall that first election in 1993, we were up against an NDP incumbent who had served several terms. And I remember as we gathered at the Town and Country, the TNC, which is now called the Days Inn, we were all watching the election results come in on the television. And I have to admit, we were pretty nervous that night. We were concerned. We didn't know if we'd win or lose. But since that time, we've enjoyed 6 election victories in this constituency over those 18 years. And the party has evolved from the Reform Party of Canada. It morphed into the Canadian Alliance and then the Conservative Party of Canada, where we are today. And it's under in this constituency, under Jim's leadership and with the capable direction of our Prime Minister Stephen Harper, today I think we have much to celebrate for and much to be thankful for. So join me in that. What a great place to have a barbecue here at Fort Steele. All those Albertans who come to this region every weekend are absolutely right. This is God's country. And with this location on the banks of the Kootenay River, with in sort of the shadow of Fisher Peak, you couldn't ask for a better spot. We didn't know we were going to be holding it here till 3 weeks ago. That's why there was relatively short notice on this event, possibly due to the Prime Minister's visit and trying to tie this all in together. So we've had a lot of cooperation from the folks here at Fort Steele, and we really are thankful for their patience with us as we put this together in the last minute. And we'll mention them by name a little later. Little comment about the program this afternoon. Let me just tell you what's going to happen. First of all, we're going to fortunately that's been used. We have a number of brief presentations to Jim and Jeanette. And then in about 20 minutes, Prime Minister Harper will be joining us. And then immediately following the Prime Minister's comments, we'll be serving a barbecue dinner of steak, salmon, and chicken. So we're going to get underway right away then with our first guest. Jim has always enjoyed an excellent relationship with the Ktunaxa. And this afternoon we have several guests from the Tohono Nation that I would like to introduce. First of all, on my right is Catherine Tanise, who is the chair of the Ktunaxa Nation Council and will be coming shortly to make a brief presentation. Also here today is Cheryl Casimir, who's the chief of the St. Mary's Band. And where is Cheryl? She's standing right there. Cheryl, welcome. Sophie Pierre is also here today, and Sophie is the Chief Commissioner of the BC Treaty Commission. Sophie, could you please stand? Welcome, Sophie. And her partner, Jim Miller, is with her. In addition, Joe Pierre, who is a counselor, who's actually Sophie's son, is a counselor at St. Mary's Band, is with us. Joe, why don't you stand up? And also Bob Luke, who is a counselor with the Tobacco Plains Band. Bob? Catherine, why don't you come now with Jim and make a presentation.
Kisukukit, Kapiniskir. Husukashkukni Navsan Mitki. Good afternoon to each and every one of you. As Dave said, my name is Catherine Tenise, and I'm happy to be here to bring greetings from the Ktunaxa Nation. You've already met some of my colleagues who are here, but unfortunately we are not able to be joined by representatives from Yakanuki in Creston or Akiskanook in Windermere, but they do send their best wishes along. I want to begin first of all by thanking the organizers for the invitation to this evening's event. We welcome the opportunity to express our thanks to Jim Abbott for his years of hard work on behalf of the constituents of the Kootenay-Columbia riding. We encourage you to approach your retirement in the same way you did your work, with gusto. Your time now belongs to you and your family, and we encourage you to enjoy. Usually retirement means more time for new activities, which in Jim's case could include golfing. To get you started, we are presenting 2 passes to the St. Eugene Golf Course to help you while away some of the time that you have available to you. And we are also presenting a copy of a limited edition print that was prepared for our 10th annual charity golf tournament, which we had invited Jim, and unfortunately he was unable to attend. But we have a copy of the print for him, and as well as the golf passes, so that something to remember the Ktunaxa Nation by. Thank you.
I'll open it in a minute.
Thank you, Catherine and Jim. Catherine, thank you, sweetheart. The last time I was at a political event with Catherine was on a golf course, and she just beat me up out there. So she is, no wonder she's handing out passes to St. Eugene. She just really is a great golfer. So thank you, Catherine. During these past 18 years that Jim has been in office, we also have been fortunate to have a strong leadership with City Hall. And Mayor Scott Manjek served 11 years as a city councillor prior to becoming mayor 2 years ago. He is also the chair of the regional district as well. Join me in welcoming Scott Manjek as he makes a presentation to Jim.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you and welcome everyone to beautiful Fort Steele, and what I would say is probably a monumental event this afternoon, and that is honoring and congratulating and wishing Jim and Jeanette all the best as they head into a new chapter of their lives. And as a politician, Dave's right, you don't want to give a mic to a politician for too long, but Dave was very clear, don't talk too much, Scott, so I'm not going to, because it's truly about Jim and Jeanette today. And I've been around, as Dave said, this is going on my 12th year in local politics, and I can tell you that I get an opportunity to observe a lot of senior politicians, and I believe that Jim's legacy to this riding, but also to our country, Canada, and the Parliament will be that Jim is a unique politician because he is a man of integrity and grace. And believe it or not, folks, in politics you don't see that a lot. His reputation is so solid that I can't even tell you any off-color stories about him, because there is none about Jim, because he always represents himself and his country with such compassion and strength that for someone like myself and other politicians, we have a lot to learn from Jim. And how you learn from Jim is you just watch him. So Jim, on behalf of my community, on behalf of the Regional District of East Kootenay, and I want to say thank you. And I want to also say thank you to Jeanette. As any politician will tell you, what really happens behind the scenes is what people don't see, and that is the sacrifice that our families endure as we serve. Our families and our spouses put up with the negative talk that goes along with our job. They put up with the attacks that are just regular part of our jobs. And they also put up with the fact that we're away from home and our families on a very regular basis. So Jeanette, you have stood by Jim. You have done it that is representative of who you are as a person, and you're a perfect match for Jim because you carry a grace and dignity about yourself that's inspiring to us also. On behalf of our community, Jeanette, thank you as well. So, on behalf of the City of Cranbrook, I have 3 presentations for you, and we'll go from ascending order. The first one is just a plaque of appreciation from us, and it says, just thanking you for your appreciation of your selfless and dedicated service to the residents of Kootenay, Columbia, and the City of Cranbrook. So thank you. Here's your first one. Also, you saw me give the Prime Minister this afternoon. I don't know if you have this yet. Do you have the Covenant Cranbrook book? Good. So this is the deal right here, folks. This is from our 100th anniversary, 2005, and this is a leather-bound edition, and it is the history of our great community, Jim. So here's that for you as well.
Thank you.
And now we bring out the big guns. Jim, this is our new gift. I brought this in, I think, about 6 months ago. We got tired of the other gifts, so we thought, what can we do that's special? So on behalf of our community, and what we'll do is we'll put a plaque that says thank you for your service, City of Cranbrook, so I can take it back from you, but we will get it to you. So on behalf of our community, we really we ask that you accept this with the humility that's given it to you for long service. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And that is a beautiful clock, and I'm sure that will look great on their mantle out at their home in Wausau. Our MLA, Bill Bennett, has also worked closely with Jim over the past 9 years. Unfortunately, Bill is in Ontario today, enjoys some vacation time, and therefore is unable to pass along his congratulations to Jim and Jeanette. However, Carmen Purdy, who sits on the board of directors of the East Kootenay BC Liberal Association, is here to pass on greetings from the board. And Carmen also does double duty on the board of directors of the Kootenay Columbia constituency as well. So Carmen, please come forward and welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, children. Jim, it's a privilege and an honor to be here on behalf of Bill Bennett. I spoke to Bill today. Bill warned me not to say anything off color and not to be mentioning certain people and to mind my tongue, and I'll try to do that as best I can. We go back a ways when Jim, when I worked at the pulp mill, Jim was there. He was a salesman. He came through our operation a number of times. We talked about politics. Jim really had the right attitude about what he was going to do, and I think many politicians feel the same way. They go to Ottawa or Victoria with great intentions, and they work hard towards it. Early in the Reform Party's career, Preston Manning came to town, and Jim asked me if I would be the Master of Ceremonies at that event, and I agreed to it. And so I had an opportunity to meet Preston. He was a really, really fine man. I think Jim remembers this story. I always remember it. Preston Manning stood up, and the first thing he did was tell a joke of sorts. The politically correct things in this country have changed since I was a kid. And Preston Manning said this: in the birthing rooms across this country, it is no longer politically correct to pick these little guys up and slap their little bottoms. So today, the doctors hold the little suckers up and say, you owe the federal government $25,000, and they begin to cry immediately. I think today it would be $50,000, but I thought the joke was worth repeating because Preston said it with such enthusiasm, and what a man he was. In another event, a fellow by the name of Stephen Harper was in town, and Jim said to me, You should watch this fellow. I think he has leadership potential. I think. As Stephen Harper was filling envelopes for an event that we were having in someone's basement in Cranbrook. Quite a remarkable person. Bill Bennett said to me today that Bill and Jim and their working relationship is the envy of most MLAs and most MPs across this land. And I would have to say that is absolutely true. Here's two really opposite characters in my view on how they do things with the same passion for this great country that we live in a way that they can jointly do things together that benefits the people that they jointly represent. I would have to say that knowing Jim as long as I have, and as long as Bill has, he's an honourable person. Scott has said that before. He is very loyal. He's loyal to all those people around him. Loyalty is a hard thing to come by, but he's very loyal to those who are ahead of him and above him. You never hear him criticize his leaders. He's always there for them, even through the dark and dreary days. In the mid-90s, when Jim was taking on the responsibilities that he had, I don't think, any idea of how serious it was and what he was really getting into, because they go through and into this with a phase of, I have to say, it's got to give you a feeling of power. I think when you get to Ottawa, you feel just how powerless you are in the initial years. And Bill felt the same way in Victoria. But Bill said his door is always open. He wants you to help him get re-elected. He said that it's hard to be red and blue at the same time, and we are, because we don't have much choice in British Columbia. And so, Jim, I don't have a clock, I don't have a plaque, I just have our best wishes for you and Jeanette and your family. You're going to find in retirement, there's no time. Thank you very much for these long time.
Thank you very much, Carmen. I was getting excited there when you told me you'd been in touch with Bill Bennett. I thought you were going to announce an exemption for all restaurants for HST. This was your chance to make a stunning announcement. But our next guest is unique insofar as Chris Jenkins has spent the last 10 years of his life fossil hunting and studying the science of paleontology in this area. He has pioneered the exploration for trilobites in our region and has discovered many rich fossil beds. With Jim Abbott, they have worked diligently to ensure this great Canadian treasure stays in Canada. Together, Chris and Jim, along with the College of the Rockies, the City of Cranbrook, and the Burgess Shale Foundation, have worked diligently to protect these rare fossils. So please welcome Chris Jenkins as he makes a presentation to Jim and Jeanette.
Thanks, Dave. My name is Chris Jenkins. I have no political background or aspirations, so this will be very brief. What I have is a framed collection of East Kootenay 500 million year old fossils. And yes, it looks good. This is being presented to Jim in recognition of the efforts that he has put into spearheading the effort to have the sites in East Kootenay, very valuable sites, protected and preserved for hopefully another 500 million years. So, Jim?
Thank you, Chris. One quick housekeeping detail. We've we've got a motorhome in the parking lot that cannot move because he's parked in by 3 cars. Hopefully it's someone from here that we can help him out. If you're driving a smart car with BC plates 016 DVR or DUR, no, DUL, we need you to move that. If you're driving a Burgundy Avalanche with license plate AD4582, I think, we need you to move. And also there's a Ford F-150 that is blue with license plate 8570GR. We need you to move those because that motorhome would like to leave and cannot. Just as Jim has an office here in Cranbrook for the East Kootenays, he also obviously has an office in Ottawa, and he has some staff down there that sent greetings by way of a letter that I'd like to read to you. And it says, on behalf of your Ottawa staff, may I take this opportunity to join with your family and friends to congratulate Jim on his retirement. In 1993, I met this towering, down-to-earth, energetic individual, Jim Abbott, who came to Ottawa to represent the great folks in Kootenay, Columbia. We have worked as a team, constituency, and Ottawa throughout these political exciting 17 years. What an experience it has been. Jim is thoughtful beyond words and a politician who is respected for his honesty, humility, and humor. And the saying goes, live so that you wouldn't be ashamed to sell the family parrot to the town gossip. That would be Jim's life. And it's signed, congratulations, Chrissy and Chelsea. As many of you know, Jim and Jeanette live on the shores of Wassa Lake, just a few kilometers up the road. And Kurt Swanson has had a picture, I understand, in his possession for some time of Wassa Lake that Jim has long admired. And so I'd like to ask Kurt to come forward now and make the presentation of that picture.
I think that we should not only be aware of the climate that we are in right now and how good we have it. And Jim, our MLA, and our mayor have just done amazing work together. One is our airport, you know, and some of the projects that they brought to the table. And Jim, I can't say enough good things about the way that you've brought us together here even. And it's such a pleasure to even know you and to know you as a friend and to represent a small business in our area. You know, everything that I ever asked Jim or went to, he was open ears, didn't agree with me all the time. But, you know, it's just such a pleasure, and you will be missed, Jim. I brought this picture to our Mayor Scott Manjak's 50th birthday party, and I got lucky and got a great shot of the trumpeter swans out at Wassa Lake. They come in twice a year, and I got a great shot, and Jim, can you come up and receive this?
Shining
you can be seated, we can start. I would like to be able to introduce the Prime Minister. I believe the rain, by the way, my best guess is we got about 15 minutes of rain and then we'll be clear again. But that's just a guess. It's not a political promise. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very great honor to be able to introduce the 22nd Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Stephen Harper. I met the Prime Minister in 1991. At that time, he was the senior policy advisor to the Reform Party. I was working out of an office that was right around the corner from the Calgary Party headquarters. Stephen and I struck a professional relationship that remains to this day. Our contact here with Stephen Harper has made Kootenay-Columbia one of the most influential constituencies in Canada. Before the 1993 election, he helped us conduct formative policy meetings. Carmen Purdy referred to one of those events that he was here, where the Prime Minister was actually stuffing envelopes. So there is nothing that we would be doing as volunteers that is any less than what our Prime Minister would do. I recall his first trip to our home here at Wausau. He pulled in with his 20-year-old bright blue Ford full-size two-door. It kind of wheezed into our driveway. Jeanette and I were impressed that the relic had actually made it past Storm Mountain. But we did note the blue haze that followed the car. We were just wondering if the fact that that year we didn't have as many mosquitoes at Wausau, if it was related. As we drove to Creston and Golden in my car, I had a chance to get to know Stephen Harper, the man. Following our election in 1993, the Reform Party had a lottery to decide MP room allocations. We both ended up on the 9th floor, which was a reformed attic of the Confederation building. Stephen Harper got the inside of a pointed turret on the building. The office was like a large broom closet with sloping walls and a convex ceiling. Again, we had a chance to sit and exchange ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, family is the highest value to our Prime Minister. So it was no surprise to me that after marrying Laureen and then having their first child, Ben, that he decided to leave politics in 1997. With the leadership contest for the Canadian Alliance Party in 2001, I contacted him to tell him he could count on my support if he wanted to run. Now, you have to know this about our constituency. We held a sold-out meeting at the Heritage Inn in Cranbrook for the first large meeting, public meeting, where the Prime Minister could test his ideas. Headed by my friend Ken Miller, our constituency delivered the strongest support of any constituency in Canada for his leadership. I even had the privilege of giving a pair of white running shoes to the Prime Minister at a national publicity event in Calgary. We repeated that support only better when he ran for the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. And of course, we remember we wouldn't have a Conservative Party of Canada. It would not have come into being. We would not be the government today without this Prime Minister and his tireless effort to bring us together. Ladies and gentlemen, my evaluation of Stephen Harper are just as true today as they were in 1991. He is prepared to question conventional thinking. He brings life to original thought. Sometimes when I'm asked things like, who do I think he'll appoint House Leader or Governor General, I say wait and see. But count on one thing. His decision will be based on sound principle. I can tell you that he listens. Since 2002, I've experienced his willingness to listen to me, and I've also witnessed his attention to the observations within our caucus. Yesterday, I met with a man who had been inspired to speak publicly and forcefully about a very emotional national issue. He told me his inspiration came from observing the Prime Minister. What he said about the Prime Minister is leadership is what empowers others to take the right course of action. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a Kootenay-Columbia welcome to the Right Honourable Stephen Harper, Prime Minister of Canada.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening. And I want to begin by thanking Jim for that really kind introduction and for stopping the rain as well. We appreciate that. But I really want to begin by giving thanks. I'm here really to thank all of you, but especially to thank my old friend from the Reform class of 93, as we call him, the King of the Kootenays, the Wise Man of Wausau, sometimes the old codger of the caucus. I've heard that one. But he is one of the truest, bluest conservatives I've ever known. Big Jim Abbott. I guess it's too late to try and convince you to change your mind. But let me just say this, Jim, as much as we'll miss you, you've more than done your time in Ottawa. In fact, the 17 years you've given commuting, and we know it's not easy, commuting between home and the Hill went way beyond the call of duty. And I know I speak for everyone here and thousands more throughout Kootenay, Columbia, in thanking you for everything you have done for your constituency and for our country. You know, tributes like this have a bittersweet flavor. It is the end of an era, at least officially. Jim's going to be with us for, well, as long as this parliament goes on. I'm not going to speculate. But it is the official farewell to an admired, trusted, and beloved brother in arms, and it inspires us to take a look back at all we've been through together, how far we've come, and how much we've accomplished. And I've got some of the same reminiscences. I do remember my first trip to Jim and Jeanette's home in Wausau. It was in 1991. It says here I was a starving grad student. I don't think anybody looked at me then or since would say I looked like I was starving. But I was a starving grad student. I was a Reform Party's chief policy officer, and I did drive my ancient Ford Custom 500, 1976 model, out from Calgary. By the time I climbed through the pass and got to Jim's place, I swear it was belching smoke out of the tailpipe and steam out of the radiator. That's what we now call a big carbon footprint. Didn't have that expression in those days. But it got me to Wausau and to the first of many long conversations with Jim about policy and politics. During our early years together in Ottawa, Jim would often come, as he just mentioned, to my broom closet of an office up high in the rafters of the Confederation building. He says we'd sit around and talk about policy. Yeah, we had to sit because we couldn't stand. But we talked about some policy, some of which made their way into the old Reform Blue Book, and some of which are reflected in our government's policies today. Jim and I saw each other periodically, not as often when I left politics and went back to Calgary, but he was one of the first ones to encourage me to run for the leadership way back in 2001. He did give me that pair of ceremonial running shoes for Christmas. Then he invited me to test the waters with a speech at the Heritage Inn, not far from here in Cranbrook. As Jim told me later, I think these are his exact words, the speech was all substance and no style. Jim is, he's diplomatic, but he gets to the point. But the crowd, and I suspect there were a few of you there, was very supportive, and it helped me decide to get back into this business, which most of the time, Jim, I'm very grateful for, and it certainly encouraged me to take the plunge. Well, nearly 9 years have passed since those days. In that time, we have rebuilt the Conservative movement in this country. We won 2 national elections, and we have now held national office for 4.5 years. And in many ways, Jim and everyone else, I think the past year, many ways, has been our best yet. Certainly the best for the country. We had the great Olympic and Paralympic Games here in British Columbia, the biggest and best Winter Games ever, with the best performance ever by Canadian athletes. In fact, I keep reminding people, the most gold medals ever won by any country in any Olympic Games. If you'd predicted that, if we'd sat around and been predicting that back in 2001, people would have laughed out loud. But it can be done. It shows what our country can do when we put our minds to it. Then there was, of course, this year, the back-to-back unprecedented meetings of the G8 and the G20. The leaders of the world's most powerful nations came to Canada looking for solutions to some of the biggest economic and social challenges of our time. And I'm proud to say that from child and maternal health to fiscal consolidation and deficit reduction to financial sector reform, we made progress, and in every case, it was Canadian solutions leading the way for the world. And of course, this year we celebrated, as we always do, Confederation's 143rd birthday on Parliament Hill. But this year, with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and a record-breaking crowd of over 100,000 Canadians on the Hill. So, friends, we are having an amazing year, and things are a lot different if you think back than they were at this time last year. The headlines a year ago were all about global economic freefall, and no one knew when or how it was going to end. What we now know. Now, friends, if there's one thing in the past 4 years, picking the past year, if there is one thing we, Jim, the caucus, all of you, our party, should be particularly proud of, it is our success in steering our country through the worst global economic crisis since the Second World War. In concert with our G20 partners and our provincial and municipal governments, we took actions to stimulate economic activity, action to keep credit flowing, action to protect jobs and to retrain workers, action to build our national infrastructure. Under our economic action plan, we are now funding some 16,000 projects underway right across the country, projects which will pay dividends for our economy and for our communities long into the future. Here in Kootenay, Columbia, we're investing in dozens of projects that have been identified by Jim and his staff. If I can just mention a few, they include renovations for the Sparwood Leisure Centre, improvements to the Eddie Mountain Arena in Invermere, expanded recreational facilities in Radium Hot Springs, support for the homeless in Cranbrook, upgrades at rail crossings throughout the riding, and job training for young people at Nakusp. And earlier today, I announced federal support for major upgrades at the Canadian Rockies International Airport. Our stimulus efforts here and across the country, coupled with the tax breaks and the debt paydowns we did before the recession struck, have really paid off for Canada. We have had one of the largest stimulus programs in the world, yet with the lowest levels of deficit and debt of any major advanced country. Friends, we were the last, I've said this before, I said it at the depths of the recession, and people now see what is happening. We were the last major developed country that was dragged into this recession. We have been the least affected by it, and we are emerging from it, and we will continue to emerge from it faster and stronger than any other country on earth. Our country has regained, our economy has regained virtually all of the jobs lost during the recession, the only major industrialized country to quite frankly, make significant job gains of any kind. Our rock-solid banks are growing internationally. As the global economy recovers, demand for our products is growing. Our government is opening new markets, particularly in Asia. We just signed a deal that will reopen China to Canadian beef. Our business tax rates are moving to the lowest in the G7. Now, friends, there's a lot of good news out there, but at the same time, the truth is this. The truth is that the global economy of which we are a part remains extremely fragile. The recovery remains extremely fragile. And today there are new emerging risks. In particular, the biggest emerging risk is the mountains of government debt, especially in some major developed economies. That's one of the issues we tackled under Canada's chairmanship at the G20 meetings in Toronto. We were seeking to get everyone on the same page, to first complete stimulus measures, but also to have midterm plans to tackle the issues of deficit and debts, and we succeeded. According to the agreement we reached, deficits are to be at least halved by 2013, and the government debt-GDP ratio stabilized or reduced by 2016. These, my friends, are minimum targets. In Canada, we will achieve both of these objectives, in all likelihood, by as early as next year, and we will go on to balance our budgets well ahead of any other major developed country. Now, of course, friends, I have to remind you that in that place Jim and I call home too much of the year, Ottawa, there are some other people who don't necessarily agree with our priorities. I'm going to talk about them for a second. As you know, they increasingly act together. I call them the opposition coalition, the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois. They do not agree with our priorities, and in particular, they do not agree with our priority to begin to reduce the size of our deficit. Now, I know here in British Columbia, the NDP particularly has made a great effort to tell people to try and rebrand itself as anti-tax and as fiscally responsible. You know, anti-tax these guys in Ottawa, the NDP, have not supported a single tax reduction that this government has introduced. To call these guys anti-tax and fiscally responsible is like trying to portray a cougar as a cuddly pet. The analogy is this: 1 minute it's purring in your lap, the next thing you know, you're missing an arm and a leg. And you can bet you would be missing a lot more than that if the NDP ever got their hands on the purse strings of this country. The fact is, my friends, that the opposition coalition, all of them, the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois, they do not want us to wind down our stimulus programs on schedule. On the contrary, they want to make them bigger and they want to make them permanent. But friends, that is not our position. This is something we have done because of a crisis. We will not do it on an ongoing basis. Canada will not return to the days of growing annual deficits under our Conservative government. And friends, we will not accomplish this, as the Liberals, NDP, and Bloc would have us, by raising taxes. Now, you know, during the recession, all of these parties, during the recession no less, have called on us repeatedly to raise taxes. They have demanded that we raise the federal sales tax back to 7%. They have demanded that we bring in legislation to hike business taxes back up, that we put a carbon tax in place to pay for the Kyoto Accord, and that we raise employment insurance premiums on employers and workers so that any person in any part of the country who works for a mere 45 days can collect EI for the rest of the year. That has been the policy of these parties during the recession. Now, friends, that is not our Canada. Our Conservative government's own economic plans and deficit reduction plans are clear. Canada's days as being one of the world's highest tax jurisdictions are over. We will not go back to them. Now let me talk about some other areas briefly where your Conservative team has been hard at work for you and for Canadians. First of all, and I'm very proud of this, I think it's one of the most important things we've done. We are finally giving the Canadian forces the equipment they need and the respect they deserve in this country. Whether it's taking the fight to the Taliban in Afghanistan or helping victims of disaster in Haiti, our men and women in uniform should make all Canadians proud. Recently, as you know, we announced some major procurements to rebuild our naval and our air forces over the next generation. We've also, friends, committed to act to make our communities safer. This is a big priority for us. This spring, we introduced legislation, a whole lot of legislation, most of which still hasn't been passed. Legislation to crack down on repeat violent young offenders, legislation to end house arrest for people who commit serious crimes, legislation to stand up for victims of white-collar crime, to bust up organized drug gangs, and to protect children from online predators. Friends, friends, we didn't stop there. When we found out that an infamous serial child killer was collecting a pension in prison, we didn't make excuses. The first thing we did was tabled legislation to put an end to that travesty of justice. And when it was revealed that pardons are being secretly granted to notorious sex criminals, we moved quickly to toughen up the rules so that will not happen again in this country. Now, friends, as you know, we have been pushing many of these tough on crime policies since we were elected 4.5 years ago. We've got a few of them through, but a lot of them we're still fighting to get through after years. Because, my friends of the opposition, now you would think, the things I just listed, you would think these would be things that everybody could support. But not the Liberals, not the NDP, and not the Bloc Québécois. At every turn, they have tried to block these reforms. You want to keep guns out of the hands of street criminals? Well, instead they want a registry of farmers and hunters' shotguns. You want to see criminals actually do the time they're sentenced to? They say it would be cheaper to just let them out on the streets. The only time, by the way, these parties are ever against spending money. They don't seem to understand that crime must have real consequences for the criminal, not just for the criminal's victim. We have to fight these people, my friends, every step of the way. Sometimes, through public pressure, we manage to shame them, we keep the spotlight on it, and we manage to shame them into supporting some of these things. But we are going to keep fighting to pass these things because Canadians have been very clear. They want the justice system to change. They do not want a justice system where the highest priority is the rights of the criminal. They want the highest priority to be the protection of law-abiding citizens, their property, and their families. Now let me just address a couple of other issues that I know are important to you, important to all of us. I say it again, the Senate has to be reformed. We have to have fixed, limited terms. 45 years are just too long. And I say it again, friends, if any province holds a democratic election to choose a senator, I will appoint the winner of that election to the Senate of Canada. I can't believe I've been Prime Minister for 4.5 years. I've been saying that for 4.5 years, and they've only given me one elected senator to name. It's unbelievable. But we're also committed to something else, to reform in the House of Commons. And friends, this is important. It is important particularly for this province, both of our provinces, but it's particularly important for British Columbia, that we have the House of Commons respect its founding constitutional principle, representation by population. We have tabled legislation. We challenge all of the Federalist parties to support it. Legislation to give the fast-growing provinces, including British Columbia, its fair share of seats in the House of Commons. Another thing I want to highlight briefly today is our immigration reforms. Earlier this year, we unveiled a new citizenship guide. I encourage all of you to take a look at it. It's a huge improvement. It tells a balanced story about Canada, about our history. It makes it clear that Canadian citizenship comes with responsibilities as well as rights. We've also proposed a law to crack down finally on crooked immigration consultants, and we have developed legislation that would finally give us an effective way to weed out the thousands of bogus refugee claimants who clog our system and who are blocking real sanctuary for those who need our protection. Again, friends, you think these would be things that would be supported right across party boundaries, but I'm sorry to say, if you take the refugee reform, we reached a compromise with the Liberals on this. No sooner did we reach a compromise than they reneged on it. Only after we had an outpouring of public pressure did the Liberals flip-flop again and finally agree to a new deal, which made it through Parliament. But friends, this is typical of what we deal with every single day from the opposition. Obstruction for the sake of obstruction, opposition without alternatives, turning parliamentary committees, into congressional-style kangaroo courts, you name it. All of it, ladies and gentlemen. When you watch these guys, it tells us why a Liberal NDP Bloc Québécois coalition is something as conservatives, as loyal Canadians, we can never allow to happen to this country. Right? And I just want to put this in the perspective of the challenges we face right now, because for all the improvements we have had to our economy, you know, success in this world is not inevitable. As I said earlier, the global recovery is still fragile. The risks beyond our borders are high. And if we make bad choices here at home, the world will not be forgiving. Our answer to this recession has been an effective but a short-term program of stimulus spending. The opposition coalition wants massive, new, and permanent entitlement programs. We have lowered taxes, and we want to keep them down. They want to reverse all of those tax cuts and put a carbon tax on top of them as well. We want to expand trade. Some of these guys don't even believe in free trade with the United States. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the analogy I use for this is in the Middle Ages. Some of you who study history will know in the Middle Ages there were all kinds of chemists trying to figure out ways, I guess they were called alchemists, trying to find ways to turn lead into gold. When I look at the opposition, I think they're trying to discover ways to turn gold into lead. But friends, you know, I get this question all the time: when will the next election be? My short answer is, I don't know. I tell people who ask me that, you ask the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois. Ask the coalition. All I can tell you is this: Canadians do not want an election, and our government is not seeking an election. We are focused on the number one priority of Canadians, and that is the economy of this country. But when an election comes, be under no illusion. Canadians will have a clear choice. It will be a choice between a stable, conservative, majority government, or it will be a government made up of a coalition of the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc Québécois. If they can do it, I don't care what they say, friends, in an election, if these three parties can get together after an election and force us out without going to the people, that is what they will do. So our plan when the election comes is not complicated. We must work hard. We must work harder than ever before to defeat the coalition and to ensure that we have a conservative majority government in this country. And of course, friends, we can do it. We have a solid record in government. We have a strong conservative team. And above all else, we have the common sense of the Canadian people. Although I think we have a lot more than that on our side. I do think that in the past few years, something in Canada has changed profoundly. It's hard to measure, but it is real. National pride, genuine national self-confidence and appreciation for the men and women of the Canadian Forces, and you hear it everywhere, from boardrooms to coffee shops, that Canada's international leadership by example during this recession is a good thing for the world. Now, you know, we should reflect on what a strong and great country we do have. We are one of the most stable and enduring democracies in the world. We are one of the best regulated, yet most market-oriented economies in the world, and we are one of probably the most culturally diverse, yet harmonious society the world has ever known. I believe, friends, that a confident and great country like ours will not settle for anything less than being the best it can be. It will not settle for being anyone's second or third choice. That's the ambition that Jim and I and you have had for Canada for the past 2 decades. We've worked hard, we've never lost sight of our goal, and our persistence has paid off. Over the last 4 years, we've accomplished many things that many said could never be done, but it is just the start. Now, friends, I think I'll acknowledge here, as much as I hate to see him go, I think that Jim has earned the right to put his feet up on the porch at Wausau. But for the rest of us, we have a few miles to go before we can do the same. And I know we will pursue our conservative vision for Canada with determination and conviction, just as you have done every step of the way. And I know we shall achieve it as we have always done, with your help, with your hard work, with your dedication, with your prayers. And I thank you for it. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. God bless Canada.
Thanks to the Prime Minister, because I know that we have some food that we want to get to. But I think you have now seen firsthand the man that we see in the caucus. You have seen firsthand the man who is gaining the confidence and building the kind of leadership that we as Canadians deserve to have in the world. I have suggested that probably some of the most underreported comments by Kofi Annan, by Bill Clinton, by Barack Obama, by other world leaders, I have suggested that some of the most underreported comments are the compliments that they have about our Prime Minister on the world stage. Prime Minister, I thank you for coming here today. It has been just a tremendous honor that you would come for this event, and an honor that you would have delivered this speech to my friends here today. Thank you, Prime Minister.
We just have one or two more presentations to make to the Prime Minister, so I'm going to ask Catherine Tenise to come back and on behalf of the to make a small presentation to Prime Minister Harper.
Thank you again, Dave. I want to, on behalf of the Ktunaxa Nation, take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to the Right Honourable Stephen Harper, Canada's Prime Minister. It is indeed a pleasure to have him here for this occasion, and hope that there has been some opportunity to once again experience the beauty of this part of the country that we call home. We have a small gift that we would like to give to Mr. Harper as a small memento from the Ktunaxa Nation in memory of this visit. And I again want to thank the organizers for allowing us to be a part of this occasion. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask Chris Jenkins now to come again, and he has another trilobite plaque that he would like to present to the Prime Minister.
Once again, we have framed fossils, 500 million years old. These species can be found nowhere else in the world. Absolutely unique to the Cranbrook area, and I'm very happy to be able to present this to our Prime Minister.
Well, you'll be happy to know we're in the home stretch here. We're just finishing up. We have one more presentation we'd like to make. Most of us in attendance today know Ken Miller as a tireless worker in this constituency. and in the years gone by as an effective member of Jim's team, where he served as Jim's executive assistant for 13 years. I think more than any other person, Ken can be credited with persuading Jim to let his name stand in the constituency election of 1992. And prior to his first election, Jim and Ken spearheaded the No campaign during the Charlottetown Accord referendum in the fall of '92. After Jim and the team won the first election in 1993 under the Reform candidate, Jim asked Ken to become his executive assistant. Currently, Ken is the president of the Kootenay-Columbia Electoral District Association, and I can assure you much of what we're enjoying today is a result of the hard work of Ken and his wife Wendy. So won't you join me as Ken comes to the podium now to make a presentation to his old boss.
Thanks, Dave, for that nice welcome, and it is indeed an honor to say a few words to Jim today in the presence of our Prime Minister, who is part of this family, and welcome to this beautiful area. You know, I heard Jim was a little weak today when, I think it finally hit him that he's leaving, and he had a bit of a weak spell, but I was watching him, Prime Minister, as you were talking about the elected Senate, and I seen him sort of eyeing all of the troops out there. And he's thinking, are they good for one more run? But then Catherine Denise has come to our rescue. She's given him 2 passes to the Eugene Golf Course. You're going to be called on again, all of us volunteers, to come, because they're going to need a paving crew on those greens when he gets finished. But maybe he will take up golfing. And Prime Minister, would you warn Mike Weir? Abbott's on his way. Well, 19 years is a long time, but as I look back through some of the changing times, our magazine the other night, and I see that Jim and I's name are mentioned at the same time in 1991 on the board of directors. It's interesting, some of the other names that year. Greg Sawchuk was our president, and he's still involved with the board as the chair of our candidate nomination process. Our directors that year, Jim Ashworth, Gunnar Jorgensen, they're here tonight. Ken Bell, I talked to him on the phone last night, as are many of the people that fought in that first campaign. You've been with Jim all of these years. As our Prime Minister Stephen Harper was working hard to develop policy back for the Reform Party, Jim, you entered that candidate race in January of 1992. In April of that year, you were selected as the candidate with 55% of the vote. In October the following year, 1993, you won your first campaign, surrounded by a group of hard-working novices who were also in our first campaign. You took 48.5% of the vote, over 9,000 more votes than the nearest rival. You were our first federal member of parliament. The rest, they say, is history. As your communication skills with the voters of Kootenay-Columbia paved the way for successive victories in 1997, the fall of 2000, June of 2004, a January battle of 2006, and your last victory on October of 2008. It's been a great run. I'm sure it has left you with many fine memories. Now, all of us Conservative family here, through our board of directors, and Harvey Veneer, our financial agent who has been with us for so long, him and I went down to the local government store this week. And that guy's got other talents too. I think he's selected some of the finest grapes in the Kootenays, and we want to wish you and Jeanette a happy life of watching your grandchildren grow up. So we're going to give you that presentation later on. Jim will deliver it to you. And there's one more message that I'd like to read to you, that you can, a collection for your memoirs. And this is a letter addressed on August the 10th, 2010. Dear Jim and Jeanette, Sandra and I would very much wish that we could be with you today, as you are honored by your friends and constituents. We are, however, with you in spirit, and want to join in sincerely thanking you for the many long years of service to your political party, your constituents, and your country. Not many members of Parliament have won elections under 3 different party banners. In your case, the Reform Party, the Canadian Alliance, and the Conservative Party of Canada, while still faithfully upholding the same principles. All of that makes you, Jim, a very rare bird indeed. Very few politicians also have had the common sense to move on while you're still ahead. Here too, you are exhibiting that practical, down-to-earth, sound judgment which has been a characteristic of your whole political career. Thank you again, Jim and Jeanette, for your faithful example and service to Canada. Please accept our best wishes for all of the years ahead. Yours sincerely, Preston and Sandra. So, I've been asked, as Dave will line us up for what's to follow. Apparently, the Prime Minister has brought his personal photographer. So, any people that are wishing to have photographs with the Prime Minister and their families or whoever here, can they start lining up? And I'm going to turn it over to Dave. Also, all of the board of directors, I would like them to go over there beside the folks from Fort Steele who have just put on a fabulous event here and worked with us. We want to get a group photo sometime of the Prime Minister and our board of directors.
Thank you. Just before you start lining up, we want to hear once more from Jim, and then we will dismiss you for photographs and/or food. But first of all, to wrap up, here's Brother Jim.
Good, thank you. Well, now it's my turn to say thank you. I thank God for having been born in Canada and the opportunity to serve as an MP. I thank Jeanette, the children, and extended family for their support, because as we've heard, being an MP isn't a job, it's a life. I thank Wendy and our Cranbrook years for her years of dedication and tireless support in serving our constituents. I can tell you today's event wouldn't have been a success without you, Wendy. Thank you. I want to extend thanks to Vicki in our Cranbrook office as well. Chrissy and Chelsea in my Ottawa office, in addition to helping solve problems for Kootenay, Columbia residents, take care of the mountain of detail that's an MP's job, and I can tell you, without their knowledgeable backup, I wouldn't have done half the job. Chrissy has been with me since 1993. My friend Ken Miller helped me from 1991 to 2008 when he retired as my assistant. I talked him out of retirement right now to help get our constituency, or keep our constituency, on track as we transition to a successor. Ken is our EDA president and, as had been noted, headed up our event this evening. I also want to recognize all of you who have tirelessly volunteered to make this event happen. And if I could please, if all of you who have volunteered and taken part in making this event happen, please stand so that we can recognize you. Karen has mentioned the board back in 1991. I do thank the dedicated presidents, board members, members at large, and especially our volunteers who served in 6 campaigns. I also thank the Prime Minister for giving me the opportunity to serve in the Government of Canada. I also thank you for my appointment to the Queen's Privy Council. Surprisingly, I'm only the second Kootenay resident since Confederation who has received that honor. I've been asked one thing that stands out. I've been asked what's one thing that stands out in my time as an MP. Well, there isn't any one thing. It's a combination of 6,200 days of the most unique privilege that anyone could have. I and my colleague have had small parts in giving direction to the greatest nation on earth. We've been part, I believe, of a peaceful political alteration. All the while, my offices have served Kootenay residents truly. In many cases, if we hadn't done it, it wouldn't have been done. But let me tell you this, there is no greater privilege in life than to offer to serve, and that offer being accepted. So I say to all constituents, thank you.
I'd ask Reverend Bill Plant to come up right now and just say a brief blessing on the food we're about to enjoy. And then we'll give you some directions on the food service and the pictures.
Jim, great being your friend and knowing you and supporting you, and thanks. Let's pray. Great Father of creation, in whom we live and move and have our being, thank you indeed for this great, great country that we're privileged to live in. And we know you've granted us the opportunity and the responsibility to be stewards, and so grant us great wisdom in that. Thank you for Jim and Jeanette, and we'll always remember them and continue to count them as dear friends. We commit to you our Prime Minister Stephen Harper and the whole party. Continue each day to grant them the wisdom, common sense, and direction to guide this great nation. Thank you now for the food and the fellowship we share together. Amen. Thanks,
ask you, just your relationship over the years, what that's been like.
Well, he's been one of the MPs I've been closest to. Jim serves his constituents and his country not only with great dedication, but he's motivated by a profound sincerity and a desire to help the community and the country. And he's been a great friend, great colleague. I am going to miss miss him, but we're going to have him around for a bit more.
That was my next question. I guess he will be missed.
He will be, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.